Thank you for having me here. Wow, going after Don Tapscott is always quite difficult, so honored to be here and share the stage with so many amazing people. So thank you, honored guests, for being here, everybody that's watching online as well. So I'm going to talk about a couple things today. We're in the middle of the fourth industrial revolution, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means, being in the middle of this radical transformation in our labor systems and how we can address it. The second piece I'm going to talk about is where does blockchain come in with data agency, and what are some of the challenges that we must face as regulatory bodies and as a society. And finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about universal earned income versus universal basic income, and so how that is going to play a role in our coming future, especially with so many people who have lost their jobs and will become technologically unemployed and unemployable. So right now, according to McKinsey and some of the other people that have studied this, we are about to lose somewhere between 400 to 800 million jobs globally by 2030. Now, this isn't some future event. This is happening right now. So as we talk, we're about to lose somewhere in the vicinity of 1 million warehouse worker jobs just here in the United States alone that are being replaced by Boston Dynamics robots that can do all the same work without unionizing, without taking bathroom breaks, without calling in sick, without sexually harassing their colleagues. And so that's 1 million people just in that one industry that have to be replaced or find new jobs. We're talking about all of the drivers. If you guys have seen, if you're in Silicon Valley, all the Waymo cars going around, of course Tesla with their full self-driving and so forth, all the truck drivers, Uber drivers, taxi drivers who are going to be replaced, all the fast food workers, retail employees, and many others across our entire economy who are some of the most vulnerable. These are people who haven't been to college, barely made it through high school, and haven't been upskilled in 20 years. And so how do we solve this problem when this is a cohort of people for whom the existing educational infrastructure didn't work the first time around? To expect that we can just put them into training programs that reflect our current educational infrastructure and have a different result 20 years after it failed them the first time is just mindless, right? That just won't work. Now, at the same time, we have a massive opportunity. The holy grail of education is hyper-personalization. And fortunately now, with the technologies that are emergent, we have the capacity to do so. So how many people here in the audience have ever played poker? Okay, that's most of you guys. So have you guys ever been, by show of hands, in a situation where the person you were playing against, you could identify their tells to determine if they had a good hand or if they were bluffing? Okay, sounds like most of you guys. So it turns out that with computers, when we feed them the right data sets into convolutional neural networks, computers can look at our tells to determine whether someone is frustrated or engaged, whether they're tired or focused, or when they're about to lose attention and switch to Facebook or Instagram to get that dopamine hit to make themselves feel better. And so what we do at Ahura is we collect over 10,000 biometric data points per second on every user with full consent from those students. We feed that into our convolutional neural network, and that enables us to be able to surface the right content to the right person in the right format at the right time. That enables them to learn 3 to 5 times faster than they would otherwise. Now, right now, we only work with adult learners, people who are losing their jobs, who work with corporates. But for every license that we sell to Walmart and Apple and Salesforce and all the rest, we give away a free license to members of underserved communities globally, especially with a gender and diversity lens. Thank you. I appreciate it. So this brings up a second question around data agency, and this is where blockchain comes in, and I think this is where the regulators should come in as well. We've all seen what happens with Facebook, for example, when Zuck exploits everyone's data to be able to determine what to sell people, and what happens with Cambridge Analytica. My friend Brittany Kaiser had a fantastic documentary about this. If you haven't seen it, by all means, check it out, The Great Hack. And so we need to find some way to come to an agreement within society, whether this comes from the industry itself, which I've been pushing for the past 3 years, or it comes through the government that says, hey, this is what we are and are not allowed to do with the data that we collect. I've been trying to push other investors and other CEOs within Silicon Valley and other areas to come together and come to a decision around this, and for companies to take a stand like we did at Ahura 3 years ago to say, every piece of data that we collect is actually owned by the user. They have full agency over what happens to that data, how it's used, and so forth. We may need the government, as you guys, as people here, as people watching, as senators and representatives are deciding what the regulations are around data, AI, and blockchain, to make those decisions without the interference of companies like Facebook, to do what's right for society, to prevent some of the social harm that can occur. Now, what happens when people have agency over their data is this next piece, which is the difference between universal basic income, which my friend Andrew Yang ran for president on, and he has been pushing with Sam Altman and some others, versus what I call universal earned income. I didn't create that word, but I think one of my friends may have. So I love this idea because instead of the government taxing people and then redistributing that money in the form of a universal basic income, which can be quite expensive, it requires quite a bit of overhead and so forth, if we create a structure that's equitable and fair, that enables people to have agency over their own data and gives them the resources to be able to then sell that data, not just for advertising like Salesforce does, or like Facebook does, but also to actuaries, to medical device companies, to pharmaceutical companies, to research institutions, and so forth. We can actually generate roughly $200 a month per user. Now, we do that at Ahura already, where we enable users to sell their data. We give 70% of that revenue back to the user. It's $140 a month. Now, that may not seem a lot to some of us here. That's a bottle of scotch. But for someone living in Detroit, living on minimum wage, with their significant other also generating that, and maybe a couple friends, suddenly you have 4 people together generating $600 a month. That pays for rent in many places in the country, right? Which enables people to be able to take a step back, have some breathing room, and determine what their next steps are going to be, rather than landing on the street. Now, there are ways to continually increase that, especially over the next decade, as the amount of data becomes more and more robust, and as the use cases for that data become more expensive and more valuable. So thank you so much for coming here. I'm happy to chat with you guys one-on-one. I'll be at the event later this evening as well. But I'm looking forward to partnering with anybody here that wants to figure out how we can create the future that we're all going to be happy to live in, rather than live in a dystopian hellscape.